guys, Stephen here from howtowaterfedpoleperfect.com, and I've received a few emails and a really good phone call actually this week asking me about resin and asking how long does the resin last, what sort of cost am I looking at, what can I do to make my resin last longer. And the lifetime of your resin really depends on the quality of the water that you're putting into it. Let me give you a really bad example. There was a guy that rang me this week, and his window cleaning setup is by the water-fed pole, but he doesn't carry any water in his van when he's going around the place. Now, his reasoning on the matter was that he didn't want the weight of the water in the van and that it was affecting the van too much. So what he does is he pulls up to a customer's house or property or whatever it is. He plugs into their water mains using their outside tap, and then he cleans their windows off of that. So all he does is he puts a hose pipe into their mains water connection. He puts that straight to the van, where that goes through an 11-litre bottle of resin and out the other side. So what the resin has got to do in that case is it's got to take the tap water, the mains tap water, which in my area is about 200 TDS, total dissolved solids. So it's got 200 parts per million of chlorine, fluoride, and all the minerals that you'll find in tap water. It's got to completely take that out to make 0 parts per million water for you to clean with. So that's a lot of work. So maybe this guy is going to an area, maybe it's 200 parts per million, maybe it's 400 parts per million. So the resin has loads of work to do in taking that out. And he was ringing me saying, look Stephen, this window cleaning with the water-fed pole is costing me a fortune. He got through 2 pots of resin in a week, costing him about 60 to 70 pound or €100. And no wonder, because the resin had such hard work to do to get that water absolutely pure. He sacrificed all that resin. Whereas if you're to start off with purer water, the resin has far less work to do and will last you an awful lot longer. There's a really good website, there's a really good tool on the Gardener website, and what that does is you can put in how much water you use in a week, what the TDS is of the water going into the resin first, and that little online calculator will work out how long your resin will last, and then you can cost out what it would cost you. So there's loads of guys out there, I'm sure, doing the exact same thing, using too much resin just because the water going into the resin isn't pure enough. Some guys will back-to-back resin, so if you've got a used resin, what they'll do is they'll put the used resin here, and they'll put the water into it first, and then they'll put the new resin here, and they'll piggyback one off the other, and that seems to make new resin last longer as well. But the best way of preserving the life of your resin is to have pure water going into it first. So in my case, if I use reverse osmosis, the water going into my resin first is as low as 2 or 3 or 4 parts per million. That's crazy low. You actually probably don't need to put it through resin to clean windows because it's not going to leave any spotting at 2 or 3 or 4 parts per million. But I do it anyway. So the resin would last, do you know what, it might even last a couple of years doing it that way. You know, a 30 pound bag of resin would last you that long. But what I also do is 95% of my water is harvested rainwater. And I have to be really skilled at harvesting the rainwater. If you harvest it on a really bad day, the wind is howling, the water can be quite dirty. If you harvest rainwater just as it comes down, straight down, and you don't leave a period for it to clean the roof first, it can be quite dirty. There's all bits of tricks, I'll do a video on that. But what I'd say to you is my harvested rainwater, it comes down at 9, 10, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 parts per million. But again, it takes effort and clean gutters and a few different tips and tricks, I'll go into that another day, to make that clean of rainwater off your gutters. But by doing that, that still doesn't kill off the resin very fast. I've got about 8-9 months off of an 11-litre bottle of resin from harvesting rainwater that way, and that's using about 1,500 litres a week. So you still won't kill off resin by putting it in at 15-20 TDS, and that's how important your TDS meter is, to know exactly what's going into it at each time. A few other little tips and tricks. Apparently resin, you want, when the resin is going down through your container, you want the resin itself to be mixed up. You need to move the resin every now and again. Give it a little shake. If it's in the van, the movement of the van probably does that, because you want the water to find new ways down and up the resin each time. You don't want it to make a river through your resin for it to just use the same old path. You want it to have to find new pathways all the time to use up every bit of that resin. So if you can give it a bit of a shake, that can also help. The resin also isn't supposed to be kept in freezing conditions. So if it's winter time, guys, you might have to, like me, have a little oil-filled radiator in the back of the van just to keep things above freezing in there. You might have heated water in there, or do you know what? Maybe even bring your resin bottle inside for the night, just to keep things nice and controlled for the resin itself. So a few bits of tips like that will help keep your resin in tip-top order. And guys, whether you're using mains water, so it should be going through RO first, which would save you tons of money in the long run. Reverse osmosis isn't that expensive when you compare it to the cost of resin. You need to do that first. Or whether you're harvesting rainwater, you need to do both things in a smart way so that you can preserve your resin life, because guys, you really should be getting 6 months out of your resin. You shouldn't be flying through resin whatsoever. So hopefully that answers your question, guys, on how much resin I should be going through, how much it should cost, and how I should make my resin last longer. So keep up the question, guys. Thanks very much. Stephen here, and if you have any other questions, check out my videos here on YouTube on my channel, or howtowaterfedpoleperfect.com. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.